Conversation we're going to be having is going to be very juicy, but more so, I promise you, it's going to be very enlightening, especially for people that are in employment, whether formal or informal. You need to be here until the end of our Kickstarter, which is focusing on commemorating struggles and gains made by workers against the International Labour Day 2024, which is being celebrated today. Now, for us here in Uganda, celebrations are being done in Fort Portal City. Later on, our reporter Jackson Onyango will be joining us with an update in that regard. I am Priscilla Regina Neloga. Again, happy Labour's Day. Now, Labour Day's roots trace back to the fight for workers' rights. This was in the 19th century United States. In 1886, a large demonstration did take place in America, where laborers demanded 8 hours of work on a daily basis, vis-a-vis the 12 hours plus that they were working at that time. However, soon the demonstration went out of hand, and this was in Chicago. A lot of people got to be hurt. This incident came to be known as the Haymarket Affair, and then this incident also marked the start of the International Labour Day. Now, in 1889, a lot of socialist parties across Europe did come together, and they decided to mark 1st May as International Labour Day. Since then, this special day has been observed every year on the very same day. For us here in Uganda today, it is set to be celebrated with the stride made by workers and addressing their challenges in a national configuration in Fort Portal, but in studio to reflect on the workers' plights, challenges, but also opportunities, we do have Councillor Janan Lwamuka, who's joining us. He is a labour lawyer, among other things, and in his capacity, he's an advocate, commissioner for oaths, and then a notary public and labour law consultant. So he's a perfect person to talk to. We're also later going to be joined by Shaffi Manafa, head of marketing and communications with the Federation of Uganda Employers, for this discussion to be holistic in nature. Good morning to you, Councillor. You're most welcome.
Thank you.
Your salutations to our audience.
Good morning, viewers. Happy Labour Day to all the workers in Uganda.
Yeah, all the workers in Uganda. Quite challenging times. COVID-19 disrupt employment in Uganda, but it's a discussion we're going to be getting into. Looking and dating back into history, the 1800s did really shape up and mark up more attention that ought to have been given to the labour market, and over the course of time that has been built into different adoptions of resolutions, such as a great international demonstration in supporting of the working class demands. And now in 2024, are some of these resolutions, treaties and mandates and agreements still standing and applicable?
Yes and no. As you recall in history, why we have a Labour Day is that workers were agitating that they should work for only 8 hours in a day. Today in Uganda, we still have workers that work beyond 12 hours in a day or 72 hours in a week, yet they are not paid overtime. So the resolutions, the laws are there to protect workers, but many workers are still not protected because lack of knowledge of these rights and institutional challenges that govern the labour market. When a worker is not aware of what rights they are entitled to, it becomes hard for such a worker to demand compliance or demand that those rights are respected. And as such, you'd find that workers will only get to know that they had rights at the tail end after they have left employment. An employee will come and tell you that I used to work 12 hours a day. Sometimes I would have to even work on Sunday. On public holidays, I would have to report to work. Whenever I would fall sick, there was no off. Or sometimes when I give birth, I would only rest for a week and come back to work. So you find employers take advantage of ignorance of workers about their rights, and the rights they remain in the statute books.
Okay, before we get into the rights conversation, of course the ESS primarily is backed on the fact that in the 1800s you do have industries that were taking shape, and therefore these were industrial workers, and the kind of work that they were doing was manual work. Today things have changed, different eras we are going through. Now we are in a technological era where quote unquote, doesn't require that much physical effort, just mental effort and being smart about it. But on the other hand, for the informal sector, the 8 hours rule does not apply. We remember during COVID-19, some of the people that were exempted were the market vendors. They were told to sleep at their stalls in their markets, so as to service sector. So you do have the informal sector whereby they wish they can work for 8 hours, but their status as far as economics is concerned pushes them to toil and toil so that they can be able to make ends meet. There's that dynamics. Let's speak into that.
Many people in the informal sector are more or less most of the time they are self-employed. So they may not be called workers in the strict meaning, or you find they are they are having family businesses, and some of these laws do not apply when you are self-employed or you are having a family business. So if you have your store in a market, you can work the entire day. No one would stop you. If you give birth and you are self-employed, it's up to you to choose whether to rest for a year or not to rest at all. So the rights that we have in our labor laws are for people who are working for others. So in the informal sector, for instance, if you look at the market setting, if you have someone carrying luggage today, 3 days they don't go back to carry the luggage of vendors, then that person cannot be treated as a worker in the sense of our labor laws. So yes, technology has advanced. Sometimes you don't have to be at work to be in the office setting that I've been here since morning up to 5 in the evening. But still, as long as you're doing work, the law says if you are at work, you're supposed to work 8 hours a day or 48 hours in a week. And if you work beyond, then they say you're entitled to have overtime. Okay,
so for the enlightenment of our audience, there are 3 words that are going to be very common: work in this discussion, informal and formal employment. So can you give us a definitive way of explaining these words? What is work according to the law, and then what is considered formal employment or informal employment?
Well, I may not define work, but I define a worker. A worker under the law is someone who works for another person and is remunerated or is given a wage at the end of that work or at the end of that task. And formal employment, formal would look at someone being formally recruited to do the given task. And informal, we are looking at people in the informal sector where you don't have records, where work is not routine. They work as and when they want. So it's an informal setting in the meaning of the word.
Okay, all right. This is our Kickstarter commemorating the struggles and gains made by workers on this International Labour Day 2024. Of course, in this discussion, we're going to be later joined by Mr. Manafa, who's going to be giving us his perspective. Coming from the formal sector of this conversation, it would be better to understand where he comes from, where things stand as far as supporting, complementing, but also aiding better ways of working for the sector are concerned. Now, Council Lwamuka has mentioned 2 things: labor laws and labor rights. Council, let's first talk about the labor laws in Uganda that exist today.
In Uganda, we have labor laws that are grouped into three categories. We have laws that deal with rights of workers. And that is, for Uganda, we are looking at the Employment Act number 6 of 2006. Then we have laws that deal with injuries that are suffered by employees. And there we are looking at the Workmen's Compensation Act of 2000. Then we have laws that deal with procedure of how do we enforce these rights. Here we have the Labor Disputes Arbitration Settlement Act of 2006, which, among others, establishes the Labor Office and also the Industrial Court. Then we also have the Occupational Health and Safety Act of 2006, which also stipulates on how a workplace should be to ensure there is a safe working environment for the workers. Then we have several regulations made under those laws, which now will deal with the procedure on how one can register a complaint or how the complaint should be handled and by who. Okay.
All right. Those details we'll be getting later on. We do have Jackson Onyango, who is in Fort Portal this morning to observe the Labor Day. And one of the dynamics is under the theme, welfare in consideration of climate change. How the two relate, he's going to be giving us intricacies into that conversation. Onyango for that conversation with Honorable Arinaitwe Rakajara, who's the Workers' MP. He has, of course, pinpointed on some things that have caused a heated debate with my guests in studio. Of course, earlier on, we were having a conversation with Councillor Janan Lwamuka. Now we've also been joined by Mr. Shaffi Manafa, Head of Marketing and Communications. This is with the Federation of Uganda Employers. Good morning to you, and you're most welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, and I'd like to take this opportunity to congratulate all the workers, brothers and sisters out there. I would like to congratulate you upon this International Labour Day. Okay. Sorry to make you work on your holiday. But nevertheless, let's react to some of the things that Honorable has pointed out. One of them being the amendment of the Employment Act, justice, advocating for justice on the ground to as low as the district level, also the minimum wage bill. First, just allow me start by talking about the Federation and briefly and how we come into this equation. Now, the Federation of Uganda Employers is the representative body of all employers in Uganda, and our mandate is guaranteed under the ILO tripartite structure, where we have government, employers who are us, and the workers, Honorable Rakajara and other workers in this country. Now, the role of the government in this triangle ILO tripartite structure is, one, to be party to international labor standards. We have ILO conventions, we have labor treaties, we have standards, we have principles, and so on and so forth. So all the labor laws in this country, the Employment Act, Labor Unions Act, Labor Disputes Arbitration Settlement Act, Safety and Health Act, Workers' Compensation, NSSF, all these originate from the ILO. So our government, as a member of the UN, ratifies these conventions and then domesticates them. So government domesticates these international standards by enacting local labor laws. Now, government has also made a mechanism for labor administration. We have the labor officer, who is like the police officer for labor issues. So when you have a labor issue at the workplace, whatever, you don't go to police, you go to labor officer. So government has put in place this. We have the labor officers, we have the industrial court, and which is at the level of the High Court, and so on and so forth. The other role of government is to ensure labor inspection, and that basically employers and workers are complying with the various laws and policies. Very, very quickly, that is the role of government. Now, with the employers who employ these people, we are supposed to actually follow the law, offer decent work, and also get the most productivity out of our workers. Now, our role as a federation that brings together employers is to guide them, is to advise them, is to hold their hands to ensure labor compliance in this country. And then the workers who are the third part of this tripartite are also supposed to serve their labor, give us their time in return to what we offer them as per the contracts of employment. So that is a very, very high summary of the tripartite: government, employers, and workers. So now coming back to the issue, we have when you look at the four main labor laws, they were all enacted in 2006. That's the Employment Act, the Labor Unions Act, the Labor Disputes Arbitration and Settlement Act, as well as the Occupational Safety and Health Act. Of course, before that we had the Workers' Compensation, which is 2000, and the NSSF as amended now in 2022. Now, before enacting these laws in 2006, the situation was actually worse off. But now, 2006 to date is, I think we are now coming to 20 years since the enactment of these laws. But we already see that there are quite a number of improvements that we can do under these laws to make them stronger, to make them maybe serve workers better in this country. The recent one was the NSSF amendment, and we have midterm access. We now have a requirement for all employers to deduct and remit. Whether you have one employee or two, you must. Previously it was 5 and above, but now, so there's some of the new amendments, and we want our members, employers in this country to take these provisions serious and actually follow and comply. Now the other which is before Parliament, like Honorable Wakajara rightly said, is the Employment Act. And I think at the center of it are the powers of the labor officer, and this again comes because of what we've seen happen since 2006 to date. But as employers, as a federation of employers, our role is mostly to advise, to guide, to help, to support the employers in this country to comply with the requirements of these labor laws. And that is why we say that every good employer in Uganda is a member of our federation, because our work is to make all of them good employers. So those employers who are out there who still not compliant, who do funny stuff, it is our work to make them good employers, and we're trying. It's not an easy thing, but we try every single day to make them good employers. Now, as a federation, we have also quite a number of best practice initiatives. For instance, we have run the Employer of the Year Award Survey. This is an annual survey whose purpose is to identify, rank, and recognize good practices. So we say, employer A, this thing is good, this thing is good. When you do it, it's actually you as the employer who benefits. So we get these practices and help promote self-regulation amongst employers. We say, don't wait for government to come, don't wait for the labor officer, don't wait for you need to be summoned to the industrial court. Do good, because when you do good, it's actually you to actually benefit of doing this good.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Manafa. Now, we do have a category of employees who don't have the privilege of, 8 hours of working a day. Their kind of line of work requires them to be on duty just to save a life. For example, doctors. Doctors do not have or enjoy some of the general privileges that employees ought to be enjoying. However, Lwamuka, let's talk about institutional labor challenges that do exist for our comrades like the doctors and other professional workers, especially as far as the labor office is concerned and the industrial court.
Under the law, which is the Employment Act, it creates an office of the district labor office. Right now in Uganda, we have over 130 districts. If you add the capital city where you have divisions, you'd find you have much more number of labor officers, of course, with the ministry, which also has a set number of labor officers. Labor officers are the court of first instance, or they are like my colleague said, they are the police of labor laws. But many labor officers, if not all, they are not trained lawyers. They don't get any prior training before they're recruited to be labor officers. Yet under the law, they're supposed to do inspections, they're supposed to mediate, they're supposed to arbitrate, they're supposed to adjudicate and give decisions, just like a court of law. So the challenge that comes is that you have a labor officer who does not understand the law, but is now hearing evidence, hearing witnesses, being cross-examined by lawyers, and is supposed to write a judgment. Sometimes they give decisions, and you find both sides are saying, I need to appeal. Both the winner and the loser are saying, I need to appeal. So we need training of labor officers. And the challenge we get there is that you find labor officers are employees of the districts. But under the law, they are answerable to the Commissioner of Labor in the Ministry of General Labor and Social Development. But their decisions are appealable to the industrial court. So you find there's no one who is in control, specifically in control of the labor officers, specifically with the mandate of training. Industrial court had started training labor officers, organizing trainings to ensure that they can up their game in doing their work. But now ministry says, no, we are the ones in charge. So you find untrained labor officers policing or implementing labor laws becomes a challenge because they don't know, some don't know these laws, but they're supposed to implement them in any way. Next, we have the industrial court. The industrial court, we are lucky to have it, it came back in 2014. It is now about to make 10 years of existence. Initially, before 2021, we had a court composed of 2 judges sitting together with 3 panelists. In 2021, the president assented to the bill, which the Labor Dispute Settlement Act, which changed the system that each judge can sit around with 3 panelists. But the 2 judges are still very few for the whole country, for all the disputes in the whole country. So you find there's a lot of case backlog. Under the law, the Labor Dispute Settlement Amendment Act of 2021, the industrial court is supposed to have at least 5 judges. But right now we have only 2. And these 2 judges have to handle all the workload in the country by moving around the country, having circuits in Mbare, in Mbarara, in Guru, in Lira, in Mukoro. So they are moving everywhere. So you find the cases are taking long in the system. An employee who has lost his job, has gone to the labor office, now goes to industrial court, has to wait for 1, 2, 3, 4 years, still waiting to get justice. Again, still the industrial court, they are supposed to have a registrar, deputy registrar, and an assistant registrar, assist in the workload. Because the registrar of the industrial court is an administrator of the court, but also a judicial officer. Judicial officer in the sense that he hears cases dealing with execution and maybe stay of execution. Or when the labor officers make decisions, they don't have power to implement them. They cannot execute those orders they make. So one has to go to industrial court, to the registrar, to ensure that the awards are executed. So it is the registrar in the industrial court who has to execute. But also he has to execute the decisions of the industrial court.
So by default, the system is broken down to even support the rights as well as the laws that should be supporting laborers at the end of the day. Turning to Mr. Manafa, and I want to give you this opportunity. Let's talk about the side of employers, because I know they also have challenges. What are some of the challenges that are presently encompassed in the work that you're doing?
Well, these challenges also manifest themselves depending on either the sector or the level of the employee in service. The challenges in the financial sector, the challenges in the telecom sector, in the agriculture sector, in the service sector, they're actually different. And this is again why our position on how we deal with these challenges also is based on the level of the employees, because you have senior management, you have middle, and then like the core, the lower cadre staff, and this again is quite different in all these sectors. Management, middle, bottom is different in the financial sector, in the telecom sector, in the agriculture sector, just as you can imagine. These challenges are quite separate. I mean, they're quite different, and that is why as FUE we take them on as they come. Our biggest role in labor compliance in this country comes with our day-to-day advice, guidance and support to employers in this country. Every single day we receive not less than 100 calls seeking for advice, seeking for guidance. I'm in this situation, I'm in this dilemma, how do I go about this, how do I handle this? Because more and more and more our employers are appreciating the need for labor compliance, which was not the case 5 years ago, which was not the case 10 years ago. So we believe, we trust that this will continue to improve in the next 5 years, the next 10 years.
Okay.
So at some point I think we shall get there.
All right.
We are very, very impressed with the theme for the Labor Day this year, which is improving access to labor justice as a prerequisite for increased productivity. So this means that as employers, we have to pay more attention to issues of fairness in the world of work. Even if we have the upper hand as employers, we need to appreciate that there has to be social justice, social equity as a prerequisite for these workers to be safe, comfortable, and give us even more productivity. So that is why, again, when you're looking at issues of labor at the workplace, it's not about one being wrong and one being right. No, it's about dialogue. You know, this is my case. I have headache. I mean, I had headache. I had flu. I don't have a medical report, but indeed, I was. You know, I was in this spot. I was sick. I wouldn't work. You know, it's about talking to each other, understanding. You know,
it's about remembering the human in resource as we have this conversation. All right. Well, thank you so much, gentlemen. Let me give council 1 minute to give a closing, and then we'll take it on to another discussion.
Thank you, Madam Presenter. As we commemorate Labor Day, workers need to appreciate and know their rights while still at the workplace. Not coming after losing the job and say, I didn't get overtime, I didn't get NSSF, I didn't get ABCD. It's good that they get to know their rights, but also government needs to ensure that the institutions that assist in labor justice are well facilitated. They have enough personnel, especially the industrial court, the labor office are well trained, so that workers can access justice and also be more productive.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, gentlemen, for your inputs, and happy Labor Day to both of you. Here at MorningAtNTV, we wrap up this conversation by saying that real development for any country is actually based on infrastructure, economic and development, all which require work. And so we've got to put in our due diligence of the work in whatever position that you hold in order to hold the country in regards to driving it towards the socio-economic development that we desire for each each one of us. In turn, it actually comes back to us. But also some of the things that have come out through employer exploitation, and there's a whole protection of investors that has become a problem, and the politicization of some of these offices, especially labor unions and support offices that are supposed to help and protect the employee at the end of the day. Let's all be reminded that at the end of the day, it's human to human above all other things.